Good morning. Let's see if I can get this set up. Okay, we got the music going. Okay, we got the music going. Happy Weed, definitely basic human. How are you? Alright, so I don't have this all set up because I actually woke up on time for this, but my wife is sick, so I had to take care of her. So we're gonna be setting this up on the go. Okay, so we are making a Fire Emblem weed tier list. Basically, oh, I think the music's a little loud. Let me turn that down. There we go. So we are making a Fire Emblem weed tier list. Basically, I'm rating the playable characters in Fire Emblem based on how good it would be to smoke weed with them. Are we gonna jump around or go in order? So we'll go in order. I'm only gonna do playable characters because I'm only gonna do playable characters because we don't have as much time as I planned for because starting late, right? The Snoop Dogg tier list. But I'll start with Engage. I think Alear would go all quiet. Alear would probably fall asleep. Honestly. I think Alear would probably fall asleep. So I'm gonna put Alear and would go all quiet. I need chat's help, by the way. I'll need chat's help for some of these, probably. So I just wanted to, you know, put that out there. In case, Mom, Alear fell asleep. Yeah, maybe that's why Alear was asleep so wrong. Vander calls the cops, by the way. Vander absolutely calls the cops. I think Alfred would be chill, but his retainers would get weird about it. Like, they would all be like, we gotta work out. We're high, we gotta work out. We gotta go to the gym, we gotta lift weights high, which is a terrible idea, by the way. Actually, I think Alfred would probably also be down to go lift weights while they're high. Like, he would start out chill, but if Boucheron and Etier were there, Alfred would absolutely go work out with them, right? But, okay, I think Celine would be chill, though, right? Actually, no, you know what? Celine would bring, like, the best fucking snacks you've ever... Celine would bring the best fucking snacks you've ever had on the Munchies. And Chloe would bring the worst ones. Celine puts weed in the tea. Yeah, she's probably just constantly high, to be honest. She's probably just constantly high. Like, that's hemp tea, almost certainly. Chloe would bring the most disgusting food you've ever heard of and be like, no, you're high. You gotta eat this. You gotta try this. I put chocolate sauce on Cool Ranch Doritos. It's delicious. It's the perfect stoner snack. Like, she would use it as an opportunity to try to push the grossest fucking foods. So that's a weird. Yunaka steals your weed. Anna steals your weed. Child. I think Louis would get really quiet. He's a people watcher, right? So I think Louis would get quiet. Does marijuana work in tea? I genuinely don't know, but for the sake of this, I think in this fantasy world, yes. Chocolate sauce on Cool Ranch doesn't sound horrible. Banned for 5 million years. Banned for 1,000 years. You will be unbanned when Alir wakes up. Rise from 1,000 years ago and rectify your mistakes for the chocolate Cool Ranch Doritos. I think Alchrist would be chill to smoke with. I think he would get more confident. I think Alchrist would get more confident and he would be like actually chill, right? What about Lapis and Citrine? I don't really have any opinions on them. Diamant calls the cops, though. Diamant calls the fucking cops. Lapis and Citrine. I think Citrine would be weird, right? Citrine would get weird if you smoked with her. Citrine absolutely calls the cops. Okay, Citrine calls the cops. What about Lapis, though? Would Lapis be chill? I think Lapis would probably be chill. I think Lapis would be chill. Like, not quite Dream Smoke Circle, but I feel like Lapis... Oh, she goes... You're right, no, she goes fully non-verbal. Like, concerning. It would be concerning, actually. Like, it would be what, like, you know, you smoke with your friend and you'd be like, are you okay? Are you okay, buddy? Are you okay? Amber, I love Amber, but he absolutely would get weird. He would absolutely get weird. Jade is the Dream Smoke Circle, though. Like, fucking full stop. Jade would write, like, the most fire fan fiction you've ever read while high. Lapis is either Omega chill or super worried. Oh god, I look like a commoner. Isn't Lapis already a commoner? She's the Potato Knight, right? Oh, also, the reason Anna is in steals your weed instead of child is because Anna would just steal it and sell it, right? Like, we're all accepting that Anna goes and steals your weed, not because she's smoking, but because she steals your weed and immediately tries to turn a profit. Oh, Lapis wants to hide the fact she's a commoner. That's probably why she goes fully nonverbal. Is she's like, this is how a commoner would behave. If anything she wants to, and anytime she thinks of saying something, she's like, that's what a commoner would say. I think Ivy would get weird as well. Zelkov obviously gets really quiet. I think we need a new tier. I think we need a new tier. Because there's a few that fit into this. Kagetsu would try to quiz everyone. And Ivy would go Omega Game Mode. Like, that's just what would happen, right? Fagato. Fagato, I think, would be chill, right? I think Fagato would be chill to smoke with. Bunei probably would get really... I mean, Bunei's already weird. Does it count as wood gets weird if bro's already eating the drywall? I think Bunei would get weird, though. Bum, 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 ba, da, da, da. The weed turns Bunei normal. Wait. No, you're right. Bunei fits into would-be chill because the weed turns him normal. Bunei's nice because you're hungry. Yeah, he would cook... Oh, you know what? I think as much as I fucking hate Bunei, he is the cook. He would cook the most delicious shit you've ever had. Hey, I heard you had the munchies, so I made you a ton of bacon and eggs. No, Bunei's in the dream smoke circle. Do we just put the entire lesbian polycule in Weed Makes Them Horny? Like, the three of them would just be sitting in the corner making out, right? I think Pandreo steals your weed. I think Pandreo steals your weed for a religious ceremony. Hortensia as a child. Sidal. What would Sidal do? I don't think Sidal would smoke weed, but I don't think he would call the cops. Here, we gotta rearrange this. Here we go. Doesn't smoke, Sidal. He's too worried about his, like, health fitness stuff, right? Do this. Perfect. Rosato's a child. Goldberry doesn't smoke, or Goldberry steals your weed? I think Goldberry steals your weed. Sidal's in the child tier. No, I think Sidal just, like, chooses not to smoke. Yeah, he'd be like, maybe it's not healthy enough. Linden is the dream smoke circle. Absolutely, Linden is the dream smoke circle. And I don't think Saphir smokes, but I think she's chill enough she wouldn't call the cops. Now, what about the Fel Xenologue characters? I don't know shit about fuck. Also, Sami's in the dream circle. Like, you always want a pet in the smoke circle. When you're high, petting a pet is like a religious experience. Rosato's a child. I think technically he's like 17 or some shit. How would Nil and Nell act? They are the opposite of their personality than in-game. I think Nell would get horny. Weed makes Nell horny, right? Nil calls the cops. Actually, no, Nil steals your weed. Gregory is a coward. I think he would go all quiet. And then Celestia is like super nice, right? I think Celestia would probably be chill to smoke with. Nell seems chill. Isn't Nell's entire personality trait being in love with you from an alternate dimension? Vale and Mavier are missing? Oh, shit. Right, because they're hidden under extra. For some fucking reason. Vale's in child tier. Mavier calls the cops, right? Nell is weird as fuck. Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't really like Nil or Nell, or any of the Felxenologue characters. But maybe that's because of Felxenologue moment. Mavier either calls the cops or stands on lookout. I think, like, once Vale is old enough to smoke, he probably stands on lookout for Vale specifically, but if Vale's not in the group, he calls the cops. Like, he's got that double standard. He just wants to be included, so he'd probably be weird. Do we think weird or calls the cops? I can make a poll. All right. Chat, which tier are we putting Morbius in? You think he'd be weird? Okay, I think Mavier gets all weird then. Chat, if you're saying Mavier gets weird, I'm inclined to agree. My instinct was cops, but weird works too. All right, you know what we should do? I'm just gonna post these tier lists on the community tab. So if you'll give me a moment. What game should we do next, by the way? Three Houses next? Sure. Also, I should move chat down. I didn't realize y'all were stuck in the cuck corner. We'll do Three Houses next, though. Let me just... Bum, ba-dum, bum. All right, weed tier lists. All right, we're gonna post these in the community tab as we go. Oh no, I lost the tiers. Shit. Okay, hold on. We can fix this. Child. Okay. Change characters, 3 houses. Aren't most of the 3 houses characters? Aren't most of the 3 houses characters also, you know, easy joke, right? But are most of the 3 houses characters children? For 3 houses, are we only doing post-time skip? Yeah, let's do post-time skip. Let's assume post-time skip. Just do time skip? Yeah, let's assume... So, who's children even after time skip? Ash, right? Ash, Cyril... This is easy. Calls the cops. Child, even though, you know, dragon, whatever. Child... Hanneman would want to do experiments on you, right? Youth Dimitri would call the cops? Hanneman does experiments and shit. Ash is like 20. He certainly doesn't look 20. I'll go off of vibes for who's children, right? I'll go off of vibes, I think. In the same way that, like, technically, what's her name? Flayn is like 1,000 years old. She's in the child tier, right? Alright. Edelgard would probably get weird, right? Like, Edelgard would try to inspire you to fuck it, let's overthrow the government while we're high, and I'm like, girly pop, I agree with your, like, inequality stuff, but I'm just trying to have a chill time in the smoke circle right now, right? I think he would also get weird. Hubert would also get weird just because of Edelgard, right? Like, it wouldn't be on his own, but if Edelgard's there, he'd be down for everything Edelgard says. Edelgard would get horny. Nah, I think she's too preoccupied with overthrowing the church. I don't think she would be chill to smoke with. You know who does get horny on weed, though, is Dorothea. Oh my god, lyric songs. No lyrics! No lyrics. Alright. I don't see it. Isn't Dorothea's whole thing trying to find a husband? Ferdinand calls the cops, for sure. Bernie needs weed. Isn't Bernie child tier? Bernie feels child tier. But I think she would get quiet. Or maybe weed would finally make her chill out, actually. I think weed would finally make Bernie chill out. Caspar would try to fight. Caspar would try to fight. Caspar would absolutely try to fucking fight. I think Petra's the dream smoke circle, for sure. And then Linhardt would get all quiet because he would just he probably takes weed to go to sleep already, right? He smokes before bed every night because it helps him wind down from a hard day's work of napping the whole time. Dimitri calls the cops. Dedue calls the cops. Actually, I think Dedue doesn't smoke. I think Dedue doesn't smoke, but I don't think he calls the cops. Linhardt is such a based individual. Linhardt is probably already on weed every day. Felix doesn't smoke. It gets in the way of his training. Please do not eat the weeds. Mercedes... I think Mercedes is the Dream Smoke Circle, but she's like my favorite character in Fire Emblem, so I am biased. Annette Child, like, I don't care about canon ages. I can't look at Annette and see anything other than a fucking 12-year-old. I'm sorry. Felix calls the cop because he doesn't like the other people in the circle. True, Felix doesn't have a problem with smoking, but he still calls the cops. He still calls the cops, you're right. Sylvain, weed makes him horny. Ingrid calls the cops. Blue Lions is just the cop house, isn't it? Oh wait, they support the Thin Blue Lion. Oh my god. Claude's Dream Smoke Circle though, right? Like, absolutely. We need a new tier, Nightmare Smoke Circle. Hilda calls the cops if there's any Almirans smoking weed. She only calls the cops if there's Almirans, though. Lawrence gets weird, yeah. Lawrence gets weird. Raphael, I think Raphael would be chill, because he has his goodie basket. Raphael brings the munchies. Raphael brings the munchies, absolutely. Lysithea is another one like Annette. I just can't view as anything other than child. And same with Ignatz. Like, I know that that's probably not their canon ages after the time skip or whatever, but like, yeah, she's gonna be mad at me for putting her in child tier, but like, I'm not mounted, so I'm fine with no, with dark spikes. Marianne gets all quiet in a way that's kind of concerning. I mean, she is suicidal, right? But, Leonie's Dream Smoke Circle. Manuela gets horny. Manuela gets horny. And Aloe doesn't smoke. Shamir's in the Dream Smoke Circle. Sedith calls the fucking cops. I think this looks about right. Lysithea would also call the cops. Child Plus calls the cops. Raphael, Ignatz, and Leonie are good commoner smoking buddies. Yeah, I'll put Big Knots in chill. I'll put Big Knots in chill. Post time skip, he does actually look less childlike. What about the Ashen Wolves? Oh, true! They must be an extra. Oh no, they're right here. I just didn't see them. Because they're after all the villains. Yuri would be chill. Constance would get weird as shit. I think Balthus steals your weed. And I don't know about Happy. Does Happy smoke? I feel like Happy doesn't smoke. The extras has their time skip designs. Oh no, I should have used the extras then. Lamau. Constance is already on weed. Happy would sigh and summon a monster. Yeah, Happy probably gets quiet, right? Happy's in the Dream Circle? Is Happy Dream Circle? I don't know jack shit about, the Ashen Wolves. Felix and Dimitri in the same tier feels weird. Well, but you see, Felix is just doing it for the love of being a hater, right? Although, I don't think Felix calls the cops, because he hates knights, and knights are the cop equivalent. So maybe doesn't smoke? This is why we need the Nightmare Circle? I don't think we need Nightmare Circle. I think would get weird is it qualifies enough, right? Just for Felix. Maybe Felix steals your weed. And Balthus gets weird. Balthus wants to fight, just like Caspar. Felix steals your wheel just to be petty. Yeah, he steals it and flushes it. And it's not even because he doesn't believe in weed. It's just, he's fucking evil. Put Kranya in the dream circle. We're only doing playable characters because we don't have time for everyone else. Phoenix is like, those knights are gonna be so pissed off when they learn you got away with smoking weed. Yuritsa and Anna? Anna's here. Oh, I forgot about Yuritsa. Is he listed under extras? Where is he? He's right here. Why is he after Geralt? He probably calls the cops, right? Or maybe he just doesn't smoke. But Anna's in steals your weed twice. I don't know, what do y'all think about Yuritsa? I think doesn't smoke, probably. Judith isn't playable, but she would be in the dream circle. Look, we don't have time. If we're doing every single game, we don't have time for the non-playables. Remember, the gay tier list took us like 6 hours. Alright. I'll post this one. All right, fates. We'll just go backwards. We'll just work our way backwards, right? Work our way down. Oh, I forgot about SOV. Well, I already put fates in there. I think Kurin would get weird. Azura would get weird. It's accurate, but also funny. My favorites are Leone, Claude, and Petra. You pick good favorites. They forgore. Silas doesn't smoke. Jacob calls the cops. Felicia, I think Felicia would get chill. Would be chill. Weed could fix her. Girl fail moment. Child tier's gonna have a lot. Yeah, child tier's gonna have a lot. Child tier's gonna be eating good tonight. Although, not all Gen 2 units, I think, qualify as child tier, right? I think Kaze would get all quiet. Sure steals your weed. Sure steals your weed. That's why we turn him into boots, because otherwise you lose your weed. Izana would be weird as shit. Actually, no. I mean, he is already high the whole time, right? Fuga probably calls the cops. I think Shigure feels old enough that I think he'd be chill. I'm not qualified for this one. I haven't played Fates in a long time. Is Izana the Dream Blunt rotation? I find Izana really off-putting, and I feel like he's already high. So, no. Dwyer Child, Sophie Child, Gunter calls the cops. Arthur would get weird. Actually, Arthur calls the cops. I'm sorry, but he would. Effie's in the Dream Smoke Circle. Odin's in the Dream Smoke Circle. Niles gets horny. I'm putting Nyx in child tier, even though she's like an adult in a child's body. Camilla gets horny and it's really uncomfortable. Baruka would be all quiet because she's already all quiet. Laszlo gets horny. What about Selena? Does anyone have any Selena thoughts? Perry doesn't smoke. She's already crazy. Selkie is a child, but I feel like she finds a way to do it anyway. Benny would go all quiet. Selena gets aggressive. That's weird. Like, I think she'd want to fight. I think she wants to fight, yeah. Leo, I love Leo, but he calls the cops. Leo fucking calls the cops. So does Xander. Charlotte? I think Charlotte honestly would be chill. We could help her a lot. Like, just unwind. She's very wound up. Again, just as a rule, you always want a pet. Petting a pet while high is a fucking religious experience. Flora calls the cops. We got a lot of cop callers. Secret calls the cops. Forrest, I think, child tier. Ignatius calls the cops. Valoria's in the dream smoke circle. Percy child tier. Ophelia child tier. Oh boy. Child tier's 2 digits now. Weed makes her horny, unfortunately. Weed makes her horny, unfortunately. Dream smoke circle. Yeah, Rinka's the dream. Flora lit herself on fire in Birthright. She's definitely smoking. You know what? I think that qualifies as getting weird. I think that qualifies as getting weird. I think we shouldn't conflate child unit with actual child. Well, that's why I've got, like, the teenagers, right? That's why I've got the people who feel old enough to, like, smoke. But, like, these ones are young, right? Like, Percy's literally a fucking toddler. Sakura's child. Hana calls the cops. Tsubaki would be chill, though. I think Tsubaki would be chill. Saizo would get all quiet. Orochi would get weird. She'd, like, try to tell your fortune and shit. And she'd be like, let me read your palms, and just, like, grab your hand without asking. Saizo makes explosions with the weed. Yeah, but he's like, him and Baruka, the reason I have Baruka and Saizo in the quiet tier is their support in Rev, where it's just ... peak writing. Ophelia should be on Steel's weed. She's definitely a weed stealer. I think she's too young. But you're right. So I'll put her there. You're right. Hinoka is the police. Fuckface over here would be chill. I think he would be chill. Like, he's such a piece of shit, but I think he'd be chill after smoke. I mean, look at his face. Look at his face. He's already on weed. Setsuna's in the dream smoke circle, obviously. Child. I think Oboro steals your weed. I think Oboro steals your weed. Hinata would get weird. Takumi calls the cops. Calls the cops is 2 tiles now. Hinata's a child, but he does call the cops. Do you mean Hayato? Do you mean Hayato calls the cops? Because Hinata's not a child. This is Hinata. This is Hayato. Takumi just fucking kills you. True. I think Kagura would be chill. Reina is the dream smoke circle. So is Kaden. Ryoma calls the cops. Scarlet would be chill. Yukimura calls the cops. I think Ryoma's son doesn't smoke. Rain is in the dream circle, yeah. Is that fucking Reed crit Wrath crit 4-range Scotty? Okay, child, dream smoke circle, calls the cops, child, honestly, I think she'd be chill. And then child. Selkie is a child, but she steals it anyway and doesn't care. I mean, so I'll be honest, the reason the furries are in Dream Smoke Circle is just, I keep saying it, like, pet a cat while you're high. It is a religious experience. That's fair. Like, I also just think from a personality perspective, Keaton and Kaden would be fun to smoke weed with in their, like, human form. But in their animal form, it's, you know, they're pets. And they want pets, too, because they are animals. Ryoma calls the cops after 25 minutes! Chat, you're not allowed to be funnier than me. This is unfair. Chat, you're not allowed to be funnier than the streamer. All right. So next is Awakening. Chrom would be chill, right? I think Chrom would be chill. For Awakening, Robin would be chill. Yeah, I think Chrom and Robin would both be chill. We got Child tier. So Frederick, I think, normally calls the cops. But if Chrom is in the smoke circle, instead he's Lookout, right? Chrom is the cops. Technically, the Shepherds are the cops. That is true. In universe, the Shepherds are kind of the cops. Sully is the Dream Smoke Circle, obviously. Stahl would get weird. Like, Stahl would finally unwind and stop being so normal. Frederick says his crit quotes. Virion gets horny. Vike gets weird. Muriel gets weird. She'd want to, like, experiment on you, right? And not in, like, a fun way. In, like, a creepy way. I think Sumiya would be chill. Sully is chill with weed. I think Sully's in the Dream Smoke Circle, honestly. Vake should be in Child? Why is Vake in Child? No way. He is not a child. I refuse to accept that. Kellum gets all quiet. I love Kellum. Sully is a character that has a poop-themed S support with the main character. What? Is the Sully Robin S support poop-themed? Long Q, I think Long Q's chill. Actually, no, he would also get quiet. Especially if there's women around. Mirabelle, I feel like, should be probably child tier. She's Lissa's age, they act similar. As you know, the rule, Banani, Dream Smoke Circle. Is Gaius a child? Look up the poop support chain, it's unhinged. I can't get distracted. Gaia, the Callum doesn't smoke because he wasn't invited. I think Gaia steals your weed, and, you know, let's just put Anna in her rightful place. Gaius brings snackies and refuses to share. True. Gaius would eat weed candies. Yes, he would. Cordelia would get all quiet. The haters will disagree, but Gregor's in the Dream Smoke Circle. Like, he just is. I fucking love this character. I do not know why. I cannot explain it. Everything about him feels like it should be obnoxious to me, but I fucking love Gregor. He's in the Dream Smoke Circle. I feel like he would also just have a lot of great life stories. Like, he already tells ridiculous stories in every single one of his supports. I would love to just get high with him and ask him about his life. You know, he's not even fucking named Gregor, right? Like, that's his brother's name, but I think his brother died, and he took his brother's name so that his brother would continue to live on. He's so, like, awesome. I love this guy. Libra in the Dream Smoke Circle? Do you think so? I think Libra would get all quiet, honestly. Tharia gets horny. Tharia and Olivia are in chill. I don't like Tharia. She's got that creepy obsession with Robin. I don't like it. I'll put Olivia in chill, though. I feel like that's true. Gregor's gonna teach the young ones how to make really good weed. That's true. He probably also just has the best hookup. I feel like Shersh doesn't smoke. Henry gets weird about it. Tharia is basically beta Camilla. Maybe this is controversial. I think Tharia is worse than Camilla from like a writing perspective. I don't like her at all. I don't think Sairi smokes. I think adult Tiki would be chill, right? She's lived long enough. She knows, like, just live and let live, right? Flavia and Basilio, I think they would also be chill. And then, okay, most of these are in child tier. But, like, Laszlo gets horny. Batman gets all quiet. Selena gets weird. Sumia feels like, or not Sumia, Cynthia feels like child tier. Child. Oh, whoop. No. Child. Gets weird. Dream Smoke Circle? And Lucia calls the cops. I'm glad we agree. Laurent is canonically the oldest. I think he doesn't smoke then. He's too into his studies. Laszlo, the Fate's brain rot. No, I just refuse to call him anything other than Laszlo because I love Laszlo. And I think Inigo's a terrible, terrible character. I know they're the same, but they're not. I also think Inigo sucks as a unit. Like, holy shit, Inigo's one of the worst units. You read Brady as a child? I do. From his supports, at least. Source, trust me, I saw it. I mean, this is all just vibes, right? Do you want a mediocre merc who picks part of his stats from dancers? I mean, yeah, and he joins so late because his map is like kind of ridiculously hard. Oh god! No! Radiant Dawn has so many people! Thankfully, we can fit a lot of them in Child. Okay, so most of the Dawn Brigade are children, but I think Nolan calls the cops on you. Aaron, despite appearances, I feel like does not smoke. And then Soth and Ileana steal your weed. Aaron calls the cops. You think Aaron calls the cops? I think Aaron's chill. I think Aaron's chill with it, to be honest. There's going to be a lot of Lagoose in the circle. Oh, true. If we go with the furry rule. Do we just, like... I think Jill would get weird. Teronio calls the cops. Yeah, I'll put Aaron in calls the cops. Sure, why not? Zhark would be chill. Explain Nolan? It's just vibes. The thing about the Dawn Brigade characters is... there's not much to go off of other than vibes, because they get like 5 lines of dialogue each. So it's kind of just vibes. I think Fiona doesn't smoke. I'm gonna put Tormod in Child. Furry goes in the Dream Smoke circle. Vika I think would be chill. Furry goes in the Dream Smoke circle. I think Raphael doesn't smoke, but I think he's fine with you smoking. Zhark is in the Dream Circle. Oh, right. Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. Zhark's awesome. I love Zhark. Zelgius calls the cops. Elincia, I think Elincia would be chill. I think Elincia would be chill to smoke with. Marsha would get weird, though. Marsha would get weird and angry. She has a short fuse. Doesn't smoke. Har gets quiet because he fucking falls asleep. Har is like a Linhardt situation where he's almost certainly high the entire game anyway. Is there a reason furries are auto-adopted in the smoke circle? Have you ever pet a cat while high? It's a religious experience. Or dog. Brahms chill. Actually, Brahms Dream Smoke circle. What am I talking about? Nephene's chill, though. Heather gets horny. Lucia calls the fucking cops. You think Leanne smokes? I'll put her in gets quiet, then. I think both the siblings call the cops, honestly. Kieran steals your weed. Wait, no, Kieran gets weird. Kieran gets really weird. Joffrey cops. Yeah, Joffrey and Lucia both call the cops. Astrid's whole thing is being super naive, so she doesn't smoke, but Makov steals your weed. Devdon gets weird. He's already weird, and he gets weirder. Soren calls the cops because there's Lagoose in the smoke circle. Khalil gets horny. I think Khalil gets horny. I mean, have you seen her Path of Radiance Joffrey support? She's already constantly horny. I think Ike is probably chill, honestly. Controversial opinion, maybe, but I don't think Ike calls the cops. I think he's chill. Titania probably gets all quiet. This is like her chance to unwind. Child tier. Oscar's in the Dream Smoke Circle for the same reason as Bonet. You need the munchies. Oh, Titania doesn't smoke. You're right. Titania doesn't smoke. No, that feels right. Boyd gets weird. Boyd gets aggressive. I feel like Boyd would get really aggressive in like a uncomfortable way. Shannon steals your weed. Shannon absolutely steals your weed. Boyd has Tempest. You don't want to see him on weed. Gatri gets horny. Risk doesn't smoke, but I think, honestly, he's an ally. I think he's an ally. Mia would get weird. Mia would, again, get aggressive. Janov steals your weed. True. Janov steals your weed. Ulki doesn't smoke, though. I feel like Ulki doesn't smoke, but Janov steals your weed. Randolph chill, or a Dream Smoke Circle. Dream Smoke Circle, Liar. Or actually, Liar's a child. But Kaiza, they're in the Dream Smoke Circle. Raisin would get, again, aggressive. A lot of Tellius, I feel like, would get aggressive. I think Sigrun would be chill, but Tanith would call the cops. I think Skrimir would get aggressive as well. I think Skrimir violates the furry rule. And I think he would get aggressive. Are Leth and Liar literally twins? I genuinely don't know. I'm sure I knew at some point, but I don't remember at the very least. Why is Jill on weird? I feel like she would backslide. I feel like Jill would backslide and she'd start saying some like low-key racist stuff. Like, you don't want Jill uninhibited because there's almost certainly some internalized stuff she still hasn't tackled. Skrimir would ruin the vibe. Yeah, he'd just get really aggressive. Bastion gets weird. Yeah, Bastion's already weird. Peleus calls the cops. Bastion is already weird. A member of the Cat Clan of the Laguz tribe, she's Let's younger sister and serves under Randolph. Well, then she's not her twin. Unless it says younger twin sister. There's no reason to assume they're twins. Anyway, yes, as chat keeps saying, Nazala steals your weed. Child tier. Tabarn would be... Actually, I think Tabarn's in the Dream Smoke Circle. I just want to spend time with him, honestly. He seems cool. Stefan is in the Dream Smoke Circle. Oliver calls the cops. Volk steals your weed to sell it on the black market. Honestly, Kurth and Anna feel like child tier to me. I feel like Laron doesn't smoke, but he's probably fine with you smoking. Same with Gareth. Renan calls the cops. Oliver, ew. Oliver calling the cops to protect the Herons from weed. Yeah, I think Oliver... It's so fucking gross that they made Oliver playable, to be honest. You're in the Dream Smoke Circle. You're in the Dream Smoke Circle. You would get all quiet, I feel like. Anna is pregnant in the whole game. I know. That doesn't mean her design isn't still childlike. You know, I said it with Faye. I said it with Flane. I said it with Naui and Na and all them. I'm going off of design appearance for the child tier. I'm not comfortable with the idea of someone who looks like they are a teenager, like, talking about them, who looks like, you know, the young or whatever. Teen pregnancy? It's just the design. Especially in Path of Radiance, Anna just looks so young. You know, Tormod is technically an adult, right? Micaiah's like, what, 30 or some shit? It's just about the design. Oh, wait, Largo! I forgot Largo. The only character not in Radiant Dawn. He goes in the Dream Smoke Circle, right? The wiki says Micaiah is 23. Gotcha. Micaiah has the weird branded aging. Yeah, Stefan too. So how old is Stefan? Because he looks like an adult and he has weird branded aging. Yo, Sacred Stoners! Erica, obviously the Dream Smoke Circle, right? And I think Seth is our first Jagan not to call the cops, right? I think Seth would be chill. Franz would get quiet. Gilliam would get quiet. Vanessa would probably doesn't smoke. Actually, Franz doesn't smoke either. Mulder calls the cops. Ross is a child. This game has like 2 cops. Child, 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 the child, the child, the child. Okay. Seth can get with Natasha, and he doesn't even mind breaking the rules. Yeah, I think he'd be chill. Kyle calls the cops. Oh, Kyle definitely calls the cops. Kyle calls the cops. Ford steals your weed. Orson gets weird. Colm steals your weed for Namie. Garcia, I think Garcia doesn't smoke. I think Garcia doesn't smoke. I don't think he would call the cops, but he doesn't smoke. Inez calls the cops. Yeah, I agree. Inez calls the cops. Garrick is chill. LaRachel is in the Dream Smoke Circle. I don't think Joshua's the Dream Smoke Circle. I think Joshua would get weird. He would try to push like gambling apps on you, right? As soon as Joshua gets high, he's like, yo, have you heard of DraftKings? Have you heard of DraftKings? It's the most fucking fun I've ever had. Yo, let's fucking gamble, bro. Arthur would get all quiet. And Natasha would get weird. Ephraim would get aggressively weird. Renak is chill. Yeah, Renak is chill. Tethys gets horny because she has that support where she fucking sexually assaults Arthur. Tana would probably get all quiet. Marissa would get weird. Dosla's in the Dream Smoke Circle too. We love Dosla here. Dusel calls the cops. Yeah, Dusel calls the cops. Saleh doesn't smoke, but he's probably chill with you smoking. Calls the cops. Doesn't smoke. Calls the cops. Sacred Stones is very cop heavy, I feel like. Murdoch would probably plug his Polymarket. What's Polymarket? Is that gambling too? Cormac chills out for once. Oh, you know, you're right. It would help Cormac. Noel calls the cops because with his luck, they just happen to show up on patrol. That's a good point. That's a good point. Marissa just keeps trying to get into fights. Yeah, that's why I have her in weird. She would get aggressive. Polymarket is gambling on the news and politics. Oh, that's that thing where, like, there's bets for nuclear war, right? Wild. The 420 Blazing Blade! First off, let's get the obvious ones out of the way. I mean, nobody has any questions on that, right? Nobody has any questions on these four? Because I feel like they're obvious. Kent literally is a cop. And, like, Sane is always horny, right? And then I think Lynn would be chill to smoke with. Oh. In fact, let's just go ahead and put all three main lords up here in the Dream Smoke Circle. Dorcas would get all quiet because someone put poison in his weed and he fucking dies. What happened to Dorcas? I put a little poison in his weed mutton. Will and Sarah, I feel like go in child tier. Urk too, just design-wise, Rebecca. Nils. Rats in the circle, rats in the circle. Matthew steals your weed. I mean, it's kind of hard to fight the thief allegations when you're literally a thief. Marcus snitches, yeah, Marcus calls the cops. Lucius would be chill. Lowen's in the circle. Wallace calls the cops. I miss Natalie. I want to go home. I think Bartray would get aggressive. Dorcas gets weird because he's sad his wife isn't there. I think Dorcas just fucking dies. I think someone poisons his mutton. Oswin calls the cops. The Armor Knights and Paladins are calling the cops in this one. Raven calls the cops. Priscilla's in the circle. True, true. Actually, I don't think Raven calls the cops because the cops are Ostians. I think he just gets weird. I think he just tries to pick fights with people. Canas also gets weird. And Merlinus gets weird. Guy gets quiet. What the fuck does Dart do? Legault gets quiet, like, concerningly and depressedly. Because he's had a rough fucking life. Lyric music. Dart's a young man. I think we say Dart doesn't smoke, right? He remembers his past exclusive while he's high. Let's put him in weird then. You think chill? Sure, sure. I don't really have any strong opinions about it. Hawkeye calls the cops. I think Hawkeye just... Yeah, Hawkeye calls the cops. You're right, you're right. Child tier. Oh, she fucking calls the cops. No, she steals your weed. This one calls the cops. This one steals your weed. I can never remember the White Wings names in this. I think there should be a tier between doesn't smoke and call the cops that's like silent judgment. I don't think we need that tier. I don't think we need that tier. Doesn't smoke can encompass anyone who doesn't call the cops. Like, I think that's calling for a bit of a tier bloat. Farna steals your weed and then calls the cops. Wait, that's a good one. Fiona as in Shrek and Farna as in flower in Italian. Yeah, but I don't know which one's which. That's the problem. I don't know which one's which. And I even get Farna mixed, or Florina mixed up sometimes. I feel like Pent calls the cops. Louise just doesn't smoke. Nino's in child tier, yeah. Isn't Jafar also a child? Like, they get married. And Carla. Vida gets weird. Like, she's just trying to start fights. Heath doesn't smoke. Geese doesn't smoke. This is Evil Carell, right? Evil Carell is in gets weird. Weirder, yeah. Evil Carell is like... Jafar doesn't give off child vibes. He marries Nino, and in order to not cancel him for pedophilia, I kind of gotta put him in the child tier. Because, like, if we put him anywhere else, he marries someone in the child tier, right? I don't want to cancel culture Jafar. Heath doesn't smoke, but he's chill about it. Is Athos in the dream circle? I think Athos is in the dream circle. I think Athos is in the dream circle, for sure, for sure. Jafar is an in-universe child soldier, yeah. Athos invented weed. I think Vernal would get all quiet, and I think Harkin would get all quiet. Harkin would just be depressed, like, I miss my wife. I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot. Vernal remembers all the shit he did? Yeah, yeah. Athos invents weed and HRT. You know, in Awakening, Rickon invents HRT. Like, genuinely. I'm not even joking. That's canonical. In his Sully support, he offers to give Sully testosterone, basically. It's like the gender change potion. Is this the largest proportion of child? It might be. It's also a very large portion of calls the cops. All right. Let's go to Binding Blade. Child, 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 child. Oh, we're going... There's so many child soldiers in Roy's army. Calls the cops. Christmas Cabs would be chill, though. Boars is in the Dream Smoke circle, obviously. Oh, genealogy! Right, Gen 2 genealogy is a lot of children. Alan would be weird. Yeah, let's say Alan weird, Lance chill. Merlinus gets weird. Actually, Merlinus is chilled out over time. Old Merlinus, I think is chill. Old Marcus would like weed. Nah. In old Marcus's supports, he fucking hates everyone. Old Marcus has not chilled out in old age. His supports, if anything, he's even more aggressive in his supports. Like, his Roy supports, he's like, bench everyone but me. Absolutely no character progression. Yeah, it's tragic. It's tragic. He's like, honestly, I think he's worse. I think he's worse. He probably watches Fox News now. Calls the cops on his neighbors for having too loud music. Ellen would get all quiet. Deke is in the circle. Deke and his bros, actually, they're all invited. Marcus, no. Roy, tell your Christmas crabs to stop smoking. They suck ass. Rutger would steal your weed. Rutger would absolutely steal your weed. And so would Saul. Dorothy's chill, though. Can we talk about how weird Cecilia is being an option with Roy? Oh, yeah. I don't like it. Child tier, child tier, child tier, child tier. Double digits child tier right now we got. Child tier. Yeah, there's so many child soldiers in Roy's army. Nino's in the circle. Gilf it up. Is Sue child tier? I think Sue's child tier. OJ's a child. He looks like one. I don't know his canon age, but he looks like one in official art. Lelina, right? Lelina. Oh my god, it's all child soldiers. Kath. Kath steals your weed, though. Kath steals your weed. I'm making the steals your weed exception like we did with Anna and Engage, right? Where if somebody has the steals your weed vibes, that doesn't necessarily mean they smoke, but they do steal it. Sue's the same age as Roy, yeah. I think Zealot's the chill Jagan, right? Marcus calls the cops, but Zealot's chill. Steals weed from the nobles to give it back to the villagers. What did I say, chat? You're not allowed to be funnier than me. Trek would get all quiet. Noah's in the circle. Astolfo would get all quiet because he's reminiscing about his fucking wife that he abandoned. I grin. Cat steals your weed and disappears. You catch her at a party with it. Trek doesn't need weed. He doesn't. He doesn't. He's just already always quiet, always chill. Barth calls the cops. I don't think Wrath smokes. Or, not Wrath. This is Shin. I don't think Shin smokes. Gonzalez would be chill, though, right? Geese would get weird. Klein calls the cops. I think adult Bartray is in the circle. I don't like young Bartray. I think he'd be too aggressive. And, like, you might think, okay, well, adult Bartray is also aggressive, but I think he's, like, he dials it back when it's circle time, right? Gonzalez would get hurt, it fucks with his senses, so he probably ends up in weird. Yeah, unfortunately, you're right, actually. Echidna's in the circle also, because she's just awesome. Tate calls the cops. Tate calls the cops. Tate would call the cops on anyone for any reason. Like, she's just like that. Elvin is in the circle. Milady doesn't smoke. Bartra is basically Greek Kratos versus North Kratos. Yeah, exactly. Bless you, Echidna. Percival calls the fucking cops. Cecilia calls the cops. Garrett's chill. Igrin is chill. Hugh steals your weed. Milady should call the cops. Why does Milady call the cops? You think Milady would call the cops on Ellen? On her girlfriend? Can you add the 4blazed here for 4blaze 420? Igrin gets quiet because she's thinking about her husband fucking abandoning her. Yeah, I think actually the two of them probably both get quiet. You're right. Zeus calls the cops. Douglas calls the fucking cops. Wrath is chill. Juno calls the cops. Yoder calls the cops. And Karel is chill. I think he's chilled out over time. Nobody gets horny. I could see Saul getting horny, but I think he just steals your weed. He's already always horny, right? He doesn't need weed for that. Actually, Noah might be... No, he's in the circle. He's in the circle. What am I talking about? He can't go anywhere other than the circle. Nobody is horny. This is the anti-horny zone. Barth looks like he'd be one. I think Barth calls the cops, right? What's with mid-game Pegasi being cops? Hey, ask Kaga. Well, I guess this isn't a Kaga game. But I just calls them like I sees them. Getting ready for Thracia. I just gotta post this one. Alright, in Thracia, leave as a child. I think Finn's chill. Tina thief stabs all the weed. Tanya child, Safi child. This is gonna be another big child soldier time. Dream Smoke Circle is the man that Marty loved in Marty. Ocean gets weird and like aggressive. Rowan would do weed. Yeah, Rowan's in the circle. Rowan's in the circle. Actually, I think Rowan's chill. I don't think Rowan's in the circle, but he is chill. Safi? Yeah, isn't Safi like 16 or some shit? I think doesn't smoke. Halvan also doesn't smoke. Avel gets stoned. Yeah, Avel literally turns into a statue. Is Ronan a child? I don't know the ages of the Thracia people. I'm going off of vibes. Lithis steals your weed, obviously. And where's Pern? Pern steals your weed, too. Thief's not fighting the thief allegations. Trude gets quiet, so quiet that everyone forgets he's recruitable. Livis steals your weed and then doxes you and gets the bounty from the dark government. Lara's in baby tier. Marita's in baby tier. Sarah's in baby tier. Miranda's in baby tier. Shanam steals your weed. There's gonna be a lot of steals your weeds here. Dawson calls the cops. Homer steals your weed. Actually, Homer just gets horny. Karen... Or Aspa's a child. Alfred probably calls the cops. Salem steals your weed. The Dandelions are the weed stealers. Asbel and Nana are both babies. Lenoan calls the cops. Ralph is in the circle, though. As is Matcha Gotcha. Karen is too young. You think Karen's in child tier? Sure. Misha calls the cops, though. Fergus would be chill, I think. Brighton would get weird. Hicks is in the circle, obviously. I mean, Hicksenberg, right? It's Hicksenberg. Xavier calls the cops, so true. And so do the Aaron versus Samsons. Connemore and Amalda. They call the cops. Selfina calls the cops. Glade calls the cops. Sias calls the cops. Sed is chill. He's not in the circle, but he's chill. Anna's a child. Dean doesn't smoke. What do we do with the fucking loser squad? Also, Shiva steals your weed. What do we do with the loser squad here, right? Like, what even are they? Olwen is chill, I think. Ilios would get weird, though. Ilios would get, like, really aggressive. The loser squad aren't invited. You know what? The loser squad, they're all horny now. They're making out in the corner. The loser squad all get horny. Galzus is weird. Sloof doesn't smoke. And Dermot doesn't smoke. You know what? Good for them. I think, like, Thracia's very vibes-based, so I think we just speedrun it. There are official Thracia ages, but they're just what age they were designed to be. Selfina was 26 and Glade is 34, which is impossible because there's a CG with Finn, Glade, and Selfina as the same age. Maybe one of them has Benjamin Button disease. Did you think about that? Deleted by facts and logic. Did you think about that? Finn, Glade, and Selfina are all the same age. Yeah. Ilios would scream about politics. That's why I have him on weird. Like, he would get... you never want to get, like, high and get political, right? Like, that's the thing. Is I'm oftentimes political, but you don't want to get high and political. That's the bad combination. Do we put Sigurd in the Dream Smoke Circle because of the barbecue scene? I think Sigurd calls the cops, honestly. Alec would be chill. Nisha would call the cops. Arden's in the circle. Azel doesn't smoke. Lex is in the circle. Quan calls the cops. Ethlyn would be chill. Finn would be chill. Horny Alec? Do his child. Do his child. I think Midir would get all quiet. Jomka would get weird. Adine doesn't smoke. Ira would get aggressive. Do's theft outweighs child. I don't think he steals the weed. I think he respects the sanctity of the weed. So I think even though he's a thief, he doesn't steal the weed. Sigurd steals your weed and your entire country. Sylvia Child. Deirdre doesn't smoke. It's probably part of the prophecy, right? Claude would be chill, though. Holland steals your weed. Beowulf steals your weed and 10,000 gold. Dew's not that kind of thief. Yeah, Dew respects it. Lachesis calls the cops. Lewin is in the circle. And Furry gets horny. Telltale Child and Bridget would get all quiet, just trying to rememberize. Just trying to rememberize everything. Would Alec be chill? I think so. Look at his face. Lewin isn't in my circle. No, you're right. He gets horny. He gets really horny. Claude would go in the circle if it wasn't for the prophetic visions. Yeah, that's the one hesitation I have. Is like, I don't want to get high and then have someone tell me how and when I'm gonna die. That feels like a bad trip. Okay, let's speedrun children. Like, so many Gen 2 units are children. It's not as many as I thought it would be, honestly. Lewin uses wind magic for the optimal hotbox. Altena would call the cops. Yeah, Altena calls the cops. Hannibal calls the cops. Arion calls the cops. Why is Arion on here? He's not playable. What the fuck? Sed is in the circle. Hawk is in the circle. Ares gets weird, right? He's an edgelord. Ares gets weird. Ares gets very weird about it. Adult Finn is still chill. He's continues to be chill. I think the substitutes would be chill, but the regular sword twins would be weird. Was Sed in the circle last game? I don't remember. I'll pull it up. No, he was in chill last game. Yeah, fuck it. I'll put him in chill. For consistency. We have to be consistent. Oify calls the cops, right? Dermot's chill. Lester's in the circle. Julia gets weird, or gets all quiet. Amit steals your weed. Arthur doesn't smoke, but Amit steals your weed. He looks like a weird stealer. Dermot doesn't smoke. Okay, we'll be consistent. We'll be consistent. Jahavier's in the circle. Johan gets horny. Shannon? I feel like Shannon doesn't smoke. Leaf Child, Nana Child, John Child. Yeah. Selip is older than Julia? Oh, he is, isn't he? Because he was the firstborn. Then I guess he's not a child. So he'd be chill. I think he'd be chill. That's so many children. Selif's army has a lot of children. I forgot Selif was older. Alright, we're getting down to the last few. We just have Gaiden. And Arcanea, right? Shadow Dragon's gonna be entirely vibes. Alright, let's do new mystery. Because that'll have everyone from Shadow Dragon, basically. Marth steals your weed and calls it a tribute, right? Chris gets horny. Luke steals your weed. He feels like a weed stealer. Rhodey, too. Cecil's in the circle, though. Cecil's in the circle. Aaron calls the cops. Fuck Aaron. Oh, we got a Shadow Dragon as well, because Jagan and Goto and, like, Boa, right? Get left off. So Jagan, Goto, Boa. Jagan's in the circle, obviously. Goto calls the cops. And Boa doesn't smoke. Isn't Arthur a 14-year-old? I genuinely don't know the actual, like, official ages or whatever. I'm going off of vibes. Doga's in the circle. Child. Chill. Warren, I feel like, would get weird, right? Risk gets cut out of the game. FE3. That's FE3 you're thinking of. Not 12. He's in a paralog in 12. But I think he doesn't smoke. Honestly, no, wait. I think he'd be chill. I think he probably smokes for his bones. Do the Chris's have slightly different personalities? Enough for that. Not enough for them to be in different tiers, in my opinion. But yeah, they do actually. Which is an interesting choice. Mathis in the circle, obviously. Steals your weed. Steals your weed. Child steals your weed. Draco Pope's in the dream circle, right? Weed makes them horny. Bantu, I think, would be chill. Roger would get really weird, like, incel. He'd go on, like, incel rants when he gets high. Gordon canonically just has baby face. Does he just look young? I'll say doesn't smoke then. I'll raise you that. The Axe Bros are making out in the corner, right? The Axe Bros are making out in the corner. Ogma would get all quiet because he's sad that Sita doesn't love him. Navarre wouldn't smoke. Yeah, Navarre wouldn't smoke. But Samuel steals your weed. Samuel steals your weed, absolutely. Camus would get all quiet. Linde's a child. Paula would be chill. I think Sita would call the cops. Merrick, child. Minerva's in the smoke circle, the dream smoke circle. Dice is in the dream smoke circle. Malice would get weird, though. The Belf Bros are making out with each other. Glenafin Beckford. I don't want to smoke with him. He calls the cops, actually. Does Sita not convince you to give her the weed? Oh, yeah, she probably steals your weed. She probably steals your weed. You're right. You're right, Windmage. You're right. Ballista blunts. Frey calls the cops. Rad and Caesar are chill. Kane calls the cops. Red calf moment, right? George would get really quiet. Or Etzel gets weird. George gets really quiet, right? Roger calls the cops. And Arlen gets really weird. Jake would be chill, though. I think Jake would be chill. Daros would get all quiet because he just got one-rounded by an enemy on his join map, and so he's dead. Athena would get kind of weird. Zane would steal your weed. Zane would steal your weed in a fucking heartbeat. Child tier, child tier. Dolphin McKellen call the cops. Abel gets weird. Astrum calls the cops. Orphan Girl is a child. Tomas doesn't smoke. He's too busy being the goat. Samson gets weird, and Sheena doesn't smoke. Astrum. Fuck Astrum. Oh, this is Frost, right? This is fucking Frost. Frost would get quiet because everyone forgets who the fuck he is. Alright, Wolfguard making out in the corner, right? Somebody mentioned the Wolfguard's making out in the corner, and I agree with that take. Except Hardin calls the cops. Katra is Proto-Thrasha? Yeah. Medea is chill, I think. Ymir gets fucking weird. Michalis calls the cops. Nagi's chill. Lena's chill. Nina doesn't smoke. Maria and Ellis are child tier. Did we miss anyone? Oh, Lawrence. Lawrence calls the cops. Evil Hardin starts talking about Nina again. Yeah, he's jealous as fuck. Hardin would call the Wolf Guard on the Wolf Guard. Alright, Arcanea, we have that list done. So I just gotta post that one. And now all that's left is SOV, right? Evil Hardin would probably be chill. I think Evil Hardin would call the cops. Alright. Alm would be chill. Tobin would be weird. Gray would be quiet. Cliff would be quiet. Faye would get horny, right? Lucas calls the cops. Delthea's a child. Evil Hardin is literally an incel. Valentia's just kind of like that continent. Evil Hardin confiscates your weed. You swapped Tobin and Gray's names. Oh, I did. Whoops. I was thinking of the correct personality, though. I just said the wrong name. Silkus in Dream Circle. Yeah. I think What's-His-Nuts would call the cops. Clive calls the cops. Claire calls the cops. Luthier steals your weed. Python steals your weed. Oh no, is that Forsyth? Wait, where's Forsyth? Forsyth's right there. Forsyth's right there. Forsyth calls the cops. Is Delphia older than Alm? Look at this portrait and tell me this is not a child. Look at this portrait and tell me this is not a fucking 6-year-old. Like, look me in the eyes and tell me that this is not a drawing of a 6-year-old. The Mila faithful are all surprisingly chill. Yeah, I think Celica's in the circle, Jenny's in the circle, and then Bowie and May are chill. Actually, I think May's in the circle. Delphia's at most 14. Yeah, and she's drawn like she's 8. Valbar's chill. Leon gets horny. Kamui is a little bit weird. Saber gets weird. Zeke calls the cops. Matilda doesn't smoke. And the girl whose name I can't remember right now is chill. Zeke would not call the cops. It's character growth. I think he still calls the cops. Sirius is after Zeke. Yeah. Noma gets weird. Dean steals your weed. Myson calls the cops. I think the White Wings are chill. Sonia's chill. Fuckface calls the cops. Atlas doesn't smoke and Jesse doesn't smoke. He's too busy trying to be the best mercenary ever. What about the Cypher 4? Oh yeah. I don't know anything about them. It's these ones, right? Child. Weird. Weird. Chill? Maybe like that? I don't know anything about them, so like I'm just going off of portrait vibes. Yuzu in Dream? She can't be in my dream circle if I don't know anything about her. Randall's kind of chill. I'll put him in chill. Okay, and that's the last one. Congratulations, YouTube. We did it. We have sorted all of the, we've sorted all the characters based on how much we would like to smoke weed with them. We still need one for Fortune's Weave. That'll be next year. Well, if it comes out this year. I'm doubtful. I don't think Fortune's Weave is coming out this year, if I'm being honest. It was announced 7 months ago, and we've heard nothing since then, right? I think Fortune's Weave is going to follow in the footsteps of Three Houses in getting delayed multiple times. Queries. What's your query? It's been 7 months. I think so. Let's see. Fortune's Weave. 7 months ago, yeah. The trailer was uploaded 7 months ago by Nintendo of America. We have some portraits, and the protagonist looks like he'd be chill using weed. I mean, yeah, but we had portraits of 3 houses, too, when it got first announced at E3, and then it was delayed multiple times. I don't think that's, like, you know, a reason why it wouldn't be delayed. Anyway, I think that's all I got for tonight. Happy Fire Emblem Day, everyone. Thanks for hanging out.